this type of praise. But now, if a person is praised for his piety or for his knowledge, what should he do then? Then his joy should be for the existence of these attributes and Allah's knowledge of them. Then, if these truly exist, then the joy should come from the existence of these things, not because of the praise, because that's not the real thing to be grateful for. You can say the real thing to be joyful for. The joy should come from gratitude, because it's really there. A person's praised for his knowledge or praised for his piety. If he feels good, he should feel good because it exists, not because so-and-so is praising him, because that's not real. He should thank Allah for them and not thank other than him, because that has nothing to do with anyone else. If he truly values the blessing of knowledge and the blessing of piety, then he would thank the one who actually endowed that gift upon him. This is if he is truly characterized by them. And of course, we have to understand that this is when it truly exists. If he is not characterized as such, then his joy over praise is foolishness. If someone says, oh wow, so-and-so is so pious, or so-and-so has great knowledge, and the reality is that he knows that he doesn't have these qualities, then it's foolishness to feel good about yourself at that time. It is like the joy of someone who is praised by another who says, the fragrance from your bowls is wonderful. Again, he doesn't beat around the bush, right? Is that something that is real? Right? Someone were to say that the smell that's emanating from your body, from that part of your body, is beautiful. It sounds great. It smells amazing. The first thing that you think to yourself is what? That there's no smell like that that's coming from there. Yet the one who is praised knows the filth and horrible stench in his bowels. This is the state of the person who rejoices over being praised for piety, asceticism, and knowledge, while he knows that within himself he is devoid of them. This is coming to terms with the reality. This is what he does. Right? He's our shrink. Right? We go to him for help. Right? This is Imam Al-Ghazali speaking to the human condition, about this human condition, to the human being. If a person finds rejoice in these things and he needs someone to tell them, even though they don't exist, this is not real. This is delusional. It will not bring anyone true happiness. This is the state of the person who rejoices over being praised for piety. Asceticism is zuhud, the idea that I don't have any attachment to this world, detachment, even though he may be in the world. Sufyan al-Thawri, one of the great ulama and contemporaries of Imam Abu Hanifa, once mentioned something very profound. He said, "Az-zuhud laysa al-zuhdu akl al-ghalith." Right, zuhud isn't eating raw food. وَلُبْسِ الْخَشِنِ, and to wear rags. وَلَكِنَّ الزُّهْدُ إِرْتِقَابُ الْمَوْتِ وَقِصَرُ الْأَمَلِ. Death, in fact, is being vigilant of death. And at the same time, or zuhud, right, asceticism is being vigilant of death and not having too many false hopes. قِصَرُ الْأَمَلِ, keep that short. People have aspirations. Aspirations are not real. وَقِصَرُ الْأَمَلِ. Unless, of course, it's in what Allah and His Messenger desire. That's why we make dua, Allahumma ja'al himmati wa hawaya fima tuhibbu wa tarda. That is something that's praiseworthy. Any other aspiration is false. As for the second and third pleasure, which is a pleasure of status with the one who praises and others, its treatment is what we have mentioned in regards to the love of status. Right? When you love people praising you either in public or from an individual who doesn't really know much about you, the way to deal with this is very simple. All you have to do is imagine a time when neither you or or the individual that's praising you will exist, right? And that pleasure that you receive at that time is not real. It's simply not real. It's imagination. The seventh principle that Imam Al-Ghazali identified as one of the root causes of the decay and the defilement of the heart is love of the dunya. Hubb ad-dunya. He says, know that the love of the world is the head of every sin. This is from the Hadith al-Nabawi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The hubb ad-dunya ra'su kulli khati'atin. It is the head of every sin, the root, the foundation of every sin. The world is not merely an expression for well, but now he defines. It's a good question, right? What is dunya? We don't really often ask that question. I mean, we live here. right? We have a house, we have food, right? We have clothes. These are things that are part of the dunya in theory, right? But it's haram for us to not value these things and utilize these things. If we were to neglect these things, we will be accountable on Qiyamah. Correct? So what's dunya in reality? Oftentimes we think, and he addresses our thought, we think that it's what? Love of wealth, and it's love of fame. He says the world is not merely an expression for wealth and status. That's not what dunya is. Rather, they are two of the world's fortunes and two of its branches, which are manifold. He says that these are just two parts of the dunya. In reality, the dunya is much, much more than that. There are many branches to the dunya. Now he addresses us. What's your dunya? Your world is an expression of your state before death. He says that dunya in reality is a state. It's not material, because the atom will go on. The world will go on, right? And the world is where the awliya live, the creation of Allah lives. And constantly we actually share this world with a bunch of creation, those that we can see and that we can't see. And many of them are in fact engaged in ibadah. وَإِن مِّن شَيْءٍ إِلَّا يُسَبِّحُ بِحَمْدِهِ. They're all glorifying their Lord. So to blame the world is foolishness. That's not what the point here is. Dunya, in fact, is the state of the human being. And he says that this is the state of the human being prior to his death. The state of the human being prior to his death. Everything in which you have fortune is of your world. He says everything is really, in fact, from the dunya, right? This is part of the dunya. This is part of the dunya. Everything is part of the dunya. He says except for three things. Why? Because everything, except what are these three things? Knowledge. Ilm, first and foremost. Second is al-marifa, recognition. Recognition of yourself, first and foremost, which leads to the recognition of the Creator. Man arafa nafsahu arafa rabbahu. And number three is hurriya, freedom. And you define freedom, right? Liberty or freedom. Freedom is being detached to that which is ephemeral, that which will go, that which will not last long. That's freedom, right? And sticking to that which will always be with you, which is your Creator. That's freedom. These three things are the only three things that will remain with you after death. Anything prior to that is from the dunya, and it's the dunya. Whatever remains with you after death, these are the three things. Indeed, these are also delightful to people of insight. And these three things, if a person truly understands what these three things are, he says that a person will find pleasure in these things. In fact, they are delightful for the people of insight. If a person tastes true knowledge, right, true recognition, and he tastes true freedom, then he'll realize this is something that is considered to be delightful, right? The difference between this pleasure and the pleasure of the world is that this pleasure is everlasting. That pleasure will come to an end. However, he says these three, they are not of the world, even though they are in the world. Very interesting, right? They're in the world, but they're not from the world. Why? Because they're not fani, and they don't come to an end. Amazing, right? These worldly fortunes have a relationship with you, a relationship with whatever the fortune is found in, and a relationship with your actions related to their rectification. So they derive from actual things that are present, your fortune in respect of them, and your effort to rectify them. As for the actual things, they are the earth and everything upon it. Allah Azza wa Jal says, إِنَّا جَعَلْنَا مَا عَلَى الْأَرْضِ زِينَةً لَهَا لِنَبْلُوَهُمْ أَيُّهُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا. What the ayah says, what it means is, verily we have made what is on the earth an adornment for it, so that we may test who is the best indeed. Everything on the earth, these are actual things. Al-ayan, he uses the term al-ayan in Arabic. They're there. What are they there for? It's very clear. We recite this every Friday, right? Allah says that what we have placed on the earth, we have done so as a zina, as an adornment. It's there to embellish. Embellish is sometimes used as a negative term, but you can understand it in that way, that it's an adornment, and it can embellish you. Why is it there? To test you, to see what you do with that reality, right? to see who is the best in action. What the human being seeks from the earth is either, now the earth has the ayan, the actual things. What does the human being seek from these actual things? He says the earth itself is either shelter and agriculture, it's plants for medicine and nourishment, it's minerals for coins, utensils, and tools, it's animals for riding and eating, or it's people for sexual benefit and employment. You just define the world for us right there. He says the world, the a'yan, those actual things that exist in the world, these are first and foremost a test for us, right? And this is their reality. These are what they are, right? We use them, essentially. The human being benefits from these things. Right? It's a very famous saying that we hear every day, or every Friday, in fact. Right? الدنيا خلقت لكم وإنكم خلقتم للآخرة. Right? The dunya is actually meant to be utilized, right? To be benefited from, but you yourself are not created for the dunya. You're created for the akhirah. Right? So use it, right? Plow in it, right? Use it for the dunya, for the akhirah. Use the dunya for the akhirah. Allah Azza wa Jalla has gathered all of that in His statements. زُيِّنَ لِلنَّاسِ حُبُّ الشَّهَوَاتِ مِنَ النِّسَاءِ وَالْبَنِينَ. As for your fortune from the world, the noble Quran has used the term caprice, al-hawa, to express it. Allah Azza wa Jalla said, إِنَّمَا الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا لَعِبٌ وَلَهُ وَزِينَةٌ وَتَفَاخُرٌ بَيْنَكُمْ وَتَكَاثُرٌ فِي الْأَمْوَالِ وَالْأَوْلَادِ. So what is he trying to say? He's trying to say that the dunya in reality is here. This is what it's there for. Right? It's there to be utilized and to be used for the benefit of the human being. But oftentimes what happens is the human being, when he loses sight of the actual utility of these things, he begins to desire them. His hawa overtakes him, his caprice, his desire overtakes him, and then it leads to a type of ghafla, heedlessness, right, and misunderstanding. And the dunya becomes a game. لَعِبٌ وَلَهُ وَزِينَةٌ وَتَفَاخُرٌ. Everyone is praising themselves, everyone's competing with the other person, they're being fooled, they're fooling themselves. Right? When a person fails to realize what the world was originally created for and what everything in the world is there for, that's what happens. You tend to forget, right? And then we get into this state, right? When the dunya becomes just a game. He says this includes all of the internal destructive characteristics, whether pride, rancor, envy. Rancor is hiqt. It's a disgusting quality to have, right? Envy is jealousy, right? And very negative term. Seeking reputation, ostentation. Ostentation is to do something for the sake of being seen, right? It's interesting now in today's day, we use the term views, right? On Facebook, how many views? It's called ostentation. Riya is to show, is to make something seen. In the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ is very, very strict on this. من رأى يرى الله به ومن يسمع يسمع الله له. On Qiyamah, Sahih Muslim, Imam Muslim brings this hadith, and the hadith is very strict. It says that the individual who shows off, he wants his actions to be seen. From bab mufa'ala, to make something seen. Allah will make a scene out of him. Yani on Qiyamah, or even in this world. وَمَنْ يُسَمِّعْ, and whoever wants his name to be heard, Allah will make his name heard on Qiyamah. It's ostentation. It's to do something to be seen. You don't need that. The reason why is because you have someone watching you all the time anyway. Right? كِرَامًا كَاتِبِينَ يَعْلَمُونَ مَا تَفْعَلُونَ. That's taking place. And that's our aqidah. That's our belief. You have the two angels on the right and the left. They're writing down everything that you do. At the same time, you have a superintendent above them. And he's watching all the time. So you are being watched. You have enough views. Hypocrisy, right? Hypocrisy is nifaq. And nifaq is to show something that doesn't exist. It's the idea of showing a face which doesn't exist. In reality, there's something else, and you're presenting a face to someone that's something else. That's hypocrisy. Boasting, tafakhur, right? हमने ये किया, they did this, we did this. This is boasting. Competition, love of the world, or love of praise. All of these things come from misunderstanding what the original purpose of the world was. All of these things are there, in fact, to be utilized for our benefit, right? In lieu to the akhirah. Not to destroy ourselves. These comprise the internal world and the external world of these comprise the internal world and the external world. So he's saying that these qualities, these comprise the internal world. These are all inner realities. And it hurts to hear about these things because they're real. But the reality is that they are real, right? And they're there in the inner world. And everything that you see outside is the external world. They're there, but they're there for a reason. And if they're misused, then it impacts the inner world. It doesn't matter if they're used or misused, it will impact the inner world. If they're used the way that they're meant to be used, then it will be positive. If they're misused, then it will be negative. Now he speaks to us. He says, as for your effort to rectify it, you need the external world. This is the totality of industry and vocations that the creation is preoccupied with. Oftentimes you see what people are after today is what? Rectifying and fixing the outward of the world. In so being, they have forgotten themselves. They don't understand what the purpose of the actual world is, or the outside world is. All they spend their time doing is islah. And use the word islah there, to rectify or to fix the outward. In so being, they have forgotten themselves, their beginning and their end, due to the complete immersion of their preoccupation with it. All you're doing is being concerned with these things. You've forgotten who you are in the process. What has preoccupied them in their sentimental attachment, for indeed the heart's attachment is so the love of this fortune, is to the love of this world's fortune, and the body's attachment is to working for its rectification. The heart is preoccupied with this because it thinks that this is the end all. This is what all the world is about, and the body reacts to the heart, right? The heart is attached to the world, and the body acts according to it to fix the outward. He says, this is the reality of the world whose love is the head of every sin. Right? Misunderstanding. So that's why Imam Al-Ghazali constantly emphasizes knowledge, ilm, understanding, right? Knowledge of what this is about, what are we here for, and then we act according to that. If you have amal before ilm, then it leads to a problem. Right? It leads to chaos. This is the reality of the world whose love is the head of every sin. It was only created as a source of provision on the journey to the afterlife. However, the abundance of its distractions and the varieties of its desirable things has made fools forget about their journey and their objective. We mentioned many times, Imam Al-Ghazali doesn't beat around the bush, right? He calls a spade, a fool is a fool. Because a fool is someone who either doesn't know, or it's an individual who knows and their action doesn't reflect that knowledge. In fact, this is how the theologians define, when they speak about the divine wisdom, they say that divine wisdom always has a good result, whether we can comprehend it or not, while safa is having a bad result for one's action, right? When something happens, when we do something and the result isn't a good thing, that's called safa, that's called foolishness. Yani the aqiba, the conclusion or the outcome isn't something that's desired. However, the abundance of its distractions and varieties of its desirable things has made fools forget about their journey and their objective. Hence, they fall short in their aspirations on account of it. And he gives a very kind of scary, not scary, but it's a true metaphor. He says they are like a pilgrim, a hajj, right? A pilgrim in the open desert who becomes preoccupied with preparing and feeding his camel, only to be left behind by his party until he misses the hajj and is devoured by the predators of the desert. Imagine a Bedouin. It's, again, right, this is before planes, right? And this is before boats too, for those who who know about the boats, right? The ships, right? There are many of our relatives, many people that I know too, my asatida that actually went on Hajj on boat, on ship. Right? So this is prior to all of that. So you have an individual, a Bedouin, he's Hajj, he makes his preparations, subhanAllah, first of all, who knows how he got the means, but he has the means now to perform Hajj. And he sets out, he's ready, he's determined, he's going on Hajj, but what does he do? He sits there all day and he fixes his camel, right? He brushes his camel, right? He attaches his belongings, he takes them off, he says, well, I have to add more. He continues to add more and more and more provisions for the journey, while everyone in the community has left. The area has left, and the village has left. The party has went ahead, and he's still doing that. What does he do? He obviously doesn't have anyone to accompany him on the journey. He gets lost. The predators of the desert come and they devour him. This is the metaphor of an individual who doesn't understand what he's doing here. وَأَنَّ إِلَىٰ رَبِّكَ الْمُنْتَهَى. Allah Azza wa Jal says that everyone in fact is on a journey, whether they realize it or not, and the destination is Allah. وَأَنَّ إِلَىٰ, that's where it ends. That's where we're headed. And we have to wake up to that reality. May Allah Azza wa Jal grant us the tawfiq to act upon the teachings that Imam Al-Ghazali is desiring to inculcate within us, and allow us to be amongst those that truly follow the way of the Prophet ﷺ, which is that of a rakib, of a person on a journey, takes shade underneath a tree that eventually passes by and leaves, and allow us to spend this time, however long it is within the dunya, to rectify ourselves and to be amongst those that are truly close to Allah. Subhanallah wa bihamdihi, subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. We can wait a couple of minutes, inshallah, maybe 3 minutes or so, and then pray.